Hi traders, welcome to this week's pre-week market review by Trade Genius. We are looking at the Euro and the GBP pairs specifically in our technical focus. But before we do so, let's just have a quick recap of last week. The major news was coming out of China, obviously, with their rate cuts. And that's having a big impact, obviously, on the currencies that are related to those markets and the commodities, which are notably the Australian dollar, the New Zealand dollar that we saw strengthen as a result of this rate cut, and also gold. So have a look at those in this week's market. It's a closely to be watched pair. Obviously, you know, the fact that China are now cutting rates isn't a great sign in terms of their economy, and they're joining the rest of the countries that are trying desperately to use fiscal policy as a way of actually digging themselves out of their own problems. The Bank of Japan guys came out last week and kind of hinted at the fact that possibly the currency has weakened too much too soon. So keep an eye there for potential pullbacks on that weakened Japanese yen. And last but not least, obviously there's a lot of investor sentiment that the US is slowly but steadily picking up, and there is a possibility that rates may be increased as soon as the second half of 2015. Keep an eye on that, and obviously the US dollar strength that the market has had in recent months in light of those potential and emerging rate hikes. Without further ado, guys, let's look at this week's technicals. We're looking at the euro dollar in this chart, and then we're going to look at the pound dollar and then put them together and look at the euro GBP. This is a monthly euro dollar chart. You can see the resistance every time the euro reaches a lower high, but on the bottom side we kind of have an interesting retest here of the lows around 125, and we see that the 2012 low is higher than the 2010 low, and we're about to reach a point now where we're either going to retest those lows of 2012 around about 122, or we are going to remain at higher lows just about 123, 124 levels. Before we sort of make any conclusions about this, let's bring this long-term chart now and really hone it into a shorter term basis. I want to take you through a 4-hour chart. Okay, you can see on a 4-hour chart that the euro really is at the point now where it's getting close to those previous lows that we had in November, and that's just around the sort of 123 levels, 123.60 and slightly below. So if we see those areas retested, okay, then you might want to assume that this pair is going to carry on dropping towards the 122 levels. Moving over to the pound dollar, the pound is an interesting one on the monthly chart. We see here a rising wedge pattern. Okay, so there are higher highs and also higher lows, but recently we've been in the bearish channel, moving from highs of 172 all the way down now to 156 and threatening the 150 levels and 152 levels more specifically in the short term. If we see those supports retested, you may want to consider buying back, and if we see any breakouts from those supports, obviously a great risk reward opportunity for further short selling towards 148. That is obviously longer term, and if you look in the short term now on this 4-hour chart here, you can see a potential ranging market, drawing you the lows here which are really coming in just short of 156, and on the highs kind of have repeated resistance levels here just about around 157. So there are the lines for you. Follow that range on the 4-hour chart, guys, because a breakout to either side is going to offer you an opportunity to either go long or short. So it keeps it nice and structured for you, and in the meantime that range is about 100 pips, which you could also consider trading. And when we put these pairs together, we look at the euro GBP. Generally, I have to say the euro has been acting a lot weaker as a currency than the pound, and you see the euro GBP in the long term has been falling to lower prices. But more recently here on this daily chart, we saw an attempt to break to the upside. It's not the first, not the second, but the fourth attempt, and we saw it being rejected in Friday's market, and you can see it here on the daily chart. Okay, but if we ever get a breakout of that level, all right, which is just around about 0.8030, you want to go long on that pair for a very long time. In the meantime, the resistances on the lower end of this trade seem to be coming in around 0.78, so you have about a 200 pip range there, and we want to see which side confirms a breakout first before we decide whether to go long or short on this euro GBP long-term pair. Okay guys, that's it for this week's currencies. Again, there are a lot of financial data coming out this week. We have on Monday Euro's German IFO business climate, which is going to affect that euro-pound trade. And then obviously later in the week, on Thursday, the German preliminary CPI data. Okay. Besides that, you have the other currencies that are going to be experiencing different news announcements this week, specifically USD consumer confidence on Tuesday, amidst a whole other basket of announcements. So keep an eye out for that and trade safe.